you were talking about alignment, and you were saying that after you meditate, you had a much better word, detachment.
Feeling of detachment from your
physical. Right. So I guess what am I trying to articulate?
Here's what you're getting at. Just by coming into your physical body and physical world, you are entering into a realm of more resistance. Sometimes you call it grounded, but it's a realm of more resistance. Well, now resistance isn't a bad thing, because contrast isn't bad, and you have to know what you don't want in order to know what you do want. And so there's always this, you might call it a meeting point, of where your questions and your answers dovetail, or your problems and your solutions dovetail, or the physical you and the non-physical you dovetail. In other words, all of this is really as you intended it to be. But there is more resistance in the physical. When you meditate and you allow yourself to release thought in a nice deep meditation, you do that. You release thought. You deactivate your own thought. And when you deactivate thought that is potentially resistant, it allows the vibration of your being to rise into alignment with who you really are. And so then you get that delicious feeling of no resistance and alignment, which is where true clarity comes from. And there's lots of clarity to be had because you've asked for a lot of things, and your vortex is this vibrational realm of absolute clarity and absolute energy and absolute love and good feeling. So now in your state of meditation, that's where you are. And when you come out of meditation, you focus back into the world, you naturally introduce a little more resistance. So it's this balance that we're talking about. So let's just say that the physical realm has resistance that the non-physical realm doesn't. And let's just say that your physical body has resistance that your non-physical body doesn't have. But then let's also say that since the non-physical you is flowing forward to you, this non-physical energy is with you in your body all the time. In other words, life force is about that, you see. And so we're not ever asking you to become so distracted from physical life that you are only like your non-physical inner being. We're just asking you to be aware of it and to lean in the direction of it, and to take the soothing and replenishment of it. Receptive mode and replenishing mode are the same mode. Receptive mode and replenishing mode and mode of clarity are the same mode. So it's just about tending to this mix. So that then, when you have what you call your death experience, we like to call it croaking, because we want to be as disrespectful as we can of the whole idea of death, since there isn't any. But when you reemerge back into non-physical completely, where you're not physically experiencing your physical apparatus, that does not mean that the non-physical part of you is still not keenly interested in this physical world. It's just that you're no longer perceiving through that particular body and mind and apparatus. But you don't become less when you have your croaking experience. You become more. Now here's the thing that we really want you to hear. How wonderful it is when you remain in your physical body and you sort of kind of get to understand this, and you care about feeling good, and you have a sense of this mix of vibration. So you're reaching for more and more thoughts that give you satisfaction, therefore practicing them so the less satisfying thoughts are less active within you and less attractive to you. Law of attraction isn't dishing them up to you so much, so that now you are a physical body with just enough resistance to keep you grounded, just enough resistance to keep you deliberately expanding, but more in vibrational connection with who you really are, so that the whole of you is being realized by you moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. It is so wonderful when the whole of you is present. What you knew when you decided to come into your body, you knew all of this, and you knew that there would be contrast for you to choose from. And you knew it would be resistance, but you knew that was a good thing, because you know that this source who is a creator, is creating forward into the now that you are living. This is not the place where you are being tested. This is the expansive zone. This is where we are all coming forward. This is where it's happening. This is the most glorious part of the whole process of creation. And so what man wants to call hell is really just detachment from that. There's not some place. It's a state of being. And the only hell that exists, it doesn't, but the only hell that exists is someone physically focused, usually a human, almost always a human, every time a human, who is focused in physical form and has found some thought that pins you off and deprive you from the source who is really you.
Why such resistance to?
Oh, we were just about to get to that. Good for you. You picked up right on that. You knew all this, and you knew that there would be a percentage of time that you would be observing life and responding to it. You knew that you would be reacting to life, and out of that reaction would come new requests, and therefore more expansion and more evolution. But you planned that you would spend about 10% of your time or less in that step one mode where you're clarifying and asking, and the rest of your wake time that you would be spending in the receptive mode where you would be receiving the inspiration to play out and live consciously the expansion that the contrast provided. And most humans have that flipped. Most humans are about 90% in contrast, and occasionally in the receptive mode where you have glimpses of who you really are. So that's really why you've asked us to come and sort of clarify with you, is that you know that contrast is a good thing. You just don't need to get stuck in step one. And it's natural, or it follows, that when you're in step one and really knowing what you don't want, and therefore feeling the tug of war, that you would then want to defend or justify it. But all of that comes from taking your guidance from others who are also in step one, who are also defending, because there are a lot of things that you can do in resistance. You can still move things around. In other words, there is a certain amount of accomplishment. That's why effort becomes so important to you and sacrifice becomes so important to you, because others who might feel benefit from things that you might do for them will teach you that your suffering and sacrifice is a better way for you to live. But once you have tasted the connection of alignment and felt the clarity of source energy flowing through you, you can't go back to feeling any satisfaction from suffering. It just isn't there. Is that what you were getting at?
Exactly.
It's such a nice thing when you come to the realization that we are all in this together, and that what we are in is a really good thing, and you can control the mix. We offered an analogy a while back that was somewhat clarifying, where imagine that you are a train on a track on nice flat ground, and that life causes you to want something, so you ask for it. So you get a strong engine going that way down your track, and that's you moving forward in life. But then you have a belief about it, like, I can't do it, or I've never done it, or I'm worried about doing it, or I shouldn't do it. So then you put an engine going in opposite direction. So now you've got two engines, desire and belief, going in opposing directions, and you don't feel very good. In fact, you feel stress. Well, what usually happens under those conditions is now you don't feel good, and now that's the receptive mode you're in, and you're launching these rockets of desire. So you launch another rocket of desire that you don't go either, which causes you to launch another rocket of desire, but you don't go either, which causes you to launch another rocket of desire, but you don't go either. So now you've really got some tension within you, because life has given you all of these clarifying desires, but your habit of thought in responding to life doesn't let you go. Most people are offering most of their vibration in response to what they are observing. And that's why sometimes it is hard, or it feels hard, for things to improve, because what is has your attention. And We know it's logical that what is would have your attention because you can see it and hear it and smell it and taste it and touch it. It's more predominant. It's more prevalent, where what's going on in your vortex is more subtle. You got to really tune to the subtleties of this vibrational mix that is going to unfold. You've got to tune to it, where what's already there is easy to observe and catalog and pigeonhole and make monuments about and talk about. And people become enamored with their struggle and with their hardship, and that's what they write the movies about, and that's what they make the monuments about, and that's what gets your attention. And you can be made to feel, if you're running around in this physical world, that if you choose to feel happy with all that going on, that you're not realistic. You're not facing reality. And we say, good, because you didn't come to face reality, you came to create reality. But a little facing of it does cause you to ask for what you intend to create. But you got to find the balance. That's why we're talking about this mix of vibration within you, you see. So when you see something on television or in your neighborhood or even in your own home or even in your own mind that is upsetting to you, that means that you've got your attention upon something that is really not what your inner being is feeling about the same thing. And we really mean that. When you feel negative emotion, your inner being is not looking away from you. Your inner being is looking right at what you're looking at with a whole different vantage point. And your negative emotion is your indicator that your vantage point is not allowing you the fullness of seeing through the eyes of source. You're not in the receptive mode. So once you receive just a little bit of this from us and you dare to meditate just 15 minutes and bring yourself to a place of non-resistance, then what happens is the momentum of that pure thought in very short period of time will move. If you can get yourself, it might take a week or 2 or 3 to really find detachment in meditation and really recognize that you're receiving a thought and that it's a good feeling thought, and then be tuned in enough to feel bold enough to follow it, to follow the thought. Not because it needs to be followed and not because you're trying to fix something that's broken. That's a whole other receiving. But because this thought feels good and I'm selfish enough that I'm going to follow this thought for me. I'm going to follow it for no reason other than it feels good. And then you're ready for the next and the next until you start finding moment to moment to moment payoffs that just become intoxicating as clarity and exhilaration and fun return to your experience. And once you get a steady run of that going, then even though you might be facing some reality and having some knee-jerk responses to it, of course you will, because step 1 will always be important. It's why you are here on this leading edge, is so that new ideas can be born within you that we can all follow through on. But as you get so that you're mostly feeling good and then occasionally responding to the now reality, what you begin to notice is that you are creating new realities. You can't just only look at what is and change it at all. You've got to get your attention off of what is. Haven't you noticed that as you face reality or talk about reality or join groups who talk about reality or read books about reality, haven't you noticed that your life doesn't change very much? It's just different faces and different places, but things don't change very much. Your vibrational set point has to change, which means you have to look away from what is. Well, that's not even a possible thing. Why would we even ask you to do something that isn't possible? You can't exclude it. You can't get away from it, because this is law of attraction. It's not law of exclusion. So when you see something that you want and you say yes to it, you include it in your vibration. It becomes part of what you attract. But when you see something that you don't want and you shout no at it, you include it in your vibration. It becomes part of what you attract. So once you begin consciously playing with this, where you start noticing moments of satisfaction and milk them to try to hold, to sustain the feeling of satisfaction longer, then you begin tipping the scale of your vibration, and things begin to get better and better and better for you, and things do change.
As a mother, I felt negligent doing exactly that, and you have taught me that, and I've learned it more and more as I continued to follow your work.
Because it feels negligent not to do what others tell you that you should be doing relative to your children. You should be guarding them and warning them and punishing them and controlling them. And in that process, what you're really doing is what was probably done to you. You are calling them away from their own guidance and making them dependent upon something that they can't depend on. Because the world is fickle. In other words, someone wants something from you and may teach you to behave in a way to please them, and may call you selfish if you have the nerve to please yourself instead of them. That's such an interesting use of selfishness. How dare you be so selfish as to do what you want when you live in this house and you should be doing what I want you to do. So without meaning to, most everyone is momentarily, sometimes it lasts a lifetime, so a long time, momentarily called away from your own guidance.